When I was in school, while everyone was learning their ABCs and who sailed across what ocean to claim what land, I was worried about who's going to find out I'm a transgender. I was worried about who's going to gay bash me or if I was even going to make it home. We are human beings. You get what I mean?
T.S. Candii, Miss Fermin, welcome.
Thank you for having us
having
here.
us.
I'm so happy to have you both here. I feel very passionately about all of the things that you are working towards at the moment, and I wanted you both to be here so that you could explain it yourselves. First of all, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your lives and just ask you what it is that you do for a living and also how you know each other. So, T.S. Candii, will you start?
Yes, thank you. Growing up in the South, I'm originally from the South. So growing up from the South, I was always feminine. I didn't know what I was. So when I got older, I was in the seventh grade and I was wearing a bow tie on my hair. The teacher pointed it out to me. Now, I didn't know that it was wrong. I didn't know nothing about gender identity. I didn't know nothing about gender expression. I didn't know anything about identity. So when I got put out of class, that's when it became a topic in my household, which forced me onto the streets.
Right. So your family were not accepting of your sexuality or your gender.
No, they was not accepting because I'm in the South. I'm in a red state. I'm in a Republican state. I'm in a state where you see KKKs where you can't step on their grass or they'll shoot you.
They think of it as evil and anti-God.
Yeah,
basically.
right, and they think that, oh well, they bring it back to the religion, like, oh well, God did make Adam and Adam, and this whatever.
So you were put out onto the street at how old?
13.
You were 13 years old.
Yeah, so I was thrown out into the streets at the age of 13, and
You had no one to take you in.
no one to take me in but the streets. So I had to sell sex,
Yeah.
and
How
so,
old were you the first time you had to sell sex?
13.
You were 13 years old.
Yes.
And it was an adult, I presume, who...
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how old he was. I just know that I needed to live and I needed to eat. So I went from that to going into the gay families where we have like houses and families. So it was like going to a community that actually accept me and that was transgender and that basically took me in under their wing.
Yeah, this happens within this community. A lot
Within
of people
the
don't know,
community.
but basically people will take in kids either off the street and they will be their like house mother or house father
Right.
or gay
Or
mother,
just in
gay
general,
father,
mother,
like
gay
general
mother, gay
mother,
father. 'Cause
father.
some people
and-
are in the house, but
Exactly. But it's a really beautiful thing that I've really only just become exposed to in the last
Definitely.
couple of years. And I'm really glad that you found someone. But you still had to maintain the sex work through that to still continue to survive?
Yes, because that person was basically showing me prevention.
Yeah.
Was letting me know that like, hey, this is how you put the condom on. Hey, don't
Yes.
do the black market. So it was more of a teaching me and helping me
Survive.
survive and understand who I was and like, okay, girl, now if you if you're gonna be a transgender woman, girl, you got to start tucking. You got to start padding. It was more of a learning experience of
Yeah.
who I was as a person and being able to amplify and basically embrace who I was.
because and I just want to cut it because unfortunately, most of them are in the same predicament as well. So it's kind of hard to take a kid in and to try to support them. It's kind of like showing you how to survive the way I'm surviving. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I
So-
understand. I have zero judgment about any of this. I just want to understand
Right.
and also help
No,
other people
definitely.
understand. And so, okay, so at this age, at what age were you now living with like a family?
I was like 15 to
Great.
16. So started living with the family and I was working in the mall. And now I'm able to, really bring in some money because when I was doing the sex work when I was younger, I wasn't making, I'm like $10, $20, $30, and something
Yeah.
like, and then I was able to get, just some little clothes, something cute or whatever. And
Would you say it's generally very difficult to find regular work if you are a trans woman, in particular a black trans woman?
yes.
Because people won't hire you.
I used to be a supervisor at a retail clothing place. I used to be a general manager at a gas station. I even used to be a private detective in the state of Georgia.
What took you back to sex work from those jobs?
What took me to sex work was because it was time for me to get a raise. And my employer basically asked me to give him oral sex for $1 raise. Girl, you think I'm finna get these tonsils expanded and wet and this expand his throat for $1 raise? Now, if you was talking about a $5 raise, then maybe I would. You know? No, maybe I would. But no. I'm not gonna do that for $1 raise. So they fired me because they didn't believe me. So when I got fired, I had to go back to my survival mode tactic because now I have rent and I have car insurance.
Can I ask you something? Because some people choose sex work. Would you have chosen sex work, or is sex work something that you personally were put in a position where you had to engage in it because of the fact that society has shut you out or harasses you in every single area that you step into?
For myself, the reason why I have done sex work and I do sex work is due to economical reasons. So due to society shutting me out, due to society pushing me out, and society not accepting me, I need to survive.
This is the shit that I feel like no one ever talks about. It's
Exactly.
the stuff that I never hear about, and really until I'd heard you talk when we spoke on the phone last year was the first time I'd ever thought that, God, it's so interesting that we don't actually hear the argument of why some people get into sex work. Because I think the conversation which is important around empowering sex workers is that a lot of people choose sex work.
Yeah.
But some people don't.
No.
And it's not necessarily that they were traumatized as a child and that's why they've become a sex worker. It's not necessarily about sex, it's about survival.
Right.
And this is the thing that no one knows. No one knows, in particular, obviously, with black people in America and around the world, and with a black trans woman, no one's hiring.
No.
So what choice do you have to survive? Either conform and live a lie and live something that isn't your identity and hide everything about yourself, or just do whatever you can to survive. And you're not stealing.
No.
You're not hurting anyone.
No.
You're just
Utilizing my
using
God's
your
given body.
skills.
Yes.
to eat
Yeah,
and to keep a roof
absolutely.
over your head. Then we're in a situation where you have young people who are often forced into a situation in which they have to take on sex work to survive. Then those people get arrested because it is a criminal act, or they are not supposed to be not soliciting sex, sorry. So then those
Right.
people can end up in the criminal justice system. Because they have engaged in sex work. And then they come out of the criminal justice system, and then they cannot get employed anywhere, regardless of their sex, regardless of their gender, regardless of the colour of their skin. People don't hire ex-criminals. And so then what does someone have to do to continue to survive? Of course, go back into sex work.
Right.
Which is fine if that's their choice, but if that's the only means by which you can survive and you don't want to do it, it's so unfair to then be doubly punished and discriminated against for it. Ms. Fermin, you no longer are a sex worker. You are a former sex worker.
Yeah, I was a former sex worker. Her story is a little different than mine's. I come from a good background. You know, my family never turned their back on me because of my sexuality. However, I grew up around straight people. You know what I'm saying? So in school, I didn't really know much. I didn't have gay friends. I didn't really have transgender friends or anything like that. I didn't really know much of the community. So back to how me and Candii, after we got back together, we started working with Decrim, going out to Albany, you know, fighting for the cause and whatnot. And that's where we are now.
So were you also financially in a situation, did you choose sex work? Or
Well, okay, so work wasn't never hard to get really, but I always got conflicted when it had to do with paperwork. Once I have to give in my IDs and Social Security and all that other stuff, now it's kind of like, are you, you know, because now it seems
So
like
you
my
were afraid
name
of
and it's
your-
not matching what's on the ID.
Right.
So that's when the problems always came. And the first job that I ever was successful in getting as a transgender female at a young age, I think I was 19 at the time, was at this place in White Plains, New York. It was Central Parking. So I got hired. Ironically, the person was really respectful towards, you know, my issue, because my issues was, okay, once I was hired, it was kind of like, all right, everybody sees me as a girl. I'm dressing up like a girl. I'm coming to work as a girl. So I made her put a C next to my name so it could read Candii instead of Andy. I don't know how it got out or whatever, but I remember one time I came to pick up my check and the C was crossed out. So when I go to speak to the person who hired me, the person was no longer there. I guess with her no longer being there and probably the new person, I guess he purposely did that, and to out me out or whatever the case is. So because of shame, guilt, I had to leave there,
So you found
so once I left there, I moved to the city. I tried to get jobs there and whatnot, and it would be hard because, like I said, once you got to show your paperwork, you face your M, and then they're looking at you and you want, what I'm saying. So it's kind of like, unfortunately, it's effed up that we can't really prove that. Oh, that's the reason why you didn't hire me. But I know that's the reason why you didn't hire me because if I got all the credentials and we're having a good vibe, and then the minute that we're doing paperwork, now it's a different story. Obviously, the problem is that I'm a male, and you have a problem with that. So that became an issue to me. And I was on welfare and whatnot, and getting little bull crap food stamps that the government try to help you with, and that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough to survive and live. So I had to go into street work, and I started doing that pretty much at the age of 21 when I moved to the city to survive.
And so you guys are now working with Decrim, but Decrim is like an umbrella of kind of protecting sex workers when it comes to legislation. What in particular are you guys working on at the moment?
Well, at the moment, we're working on the walking while trans ban, which is basically
Walking while being us.
and the law is Penal Code 240.37, which is lauding for the purpose of prostitution.
For people who don't understand, this is kind of similar to the stop and frisk, right? This is
Very
the-
similar. Very similar for the transgender community because at the end of the day, just by walking down the street in a halter top or whatever, you could get stopped and frisked because they're thinking that you're prostituting. And God forbid that you have maybe 2 or 3 condoms in your purse for protection. Immediately, you have a condom on you, whatever, you're going to jail for prostitution. And, it's ridiculous.
And part of what makes this so scary, which we've spoken about before, is the fact that then you have young sex workers, in particular young black and brown sex workers who are the ones who are way more likely to get stopped than the white trans sex workers or white sex workers, full
Definitely.
stop. You have them going outside without 2 or 3 condoms.
Because they don't want
And
to
then
get
they're
caught.
having unprotected sex. And then you have HIV
Yep.
and other STDs on the rise amongst that community who then don't have the money or the support to have healthcare.
Exactly.
Right.
It's damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah.
Right, and then
crazy.
yes, like prime example, I know several transgender Latinx women in the Jackson Heights area in Queens that has to walk outside with their marriage
With their
certificate,
marriage certificate.
with their when they walking with their siblings because law enforcement, vice in particular, is swarming down. And like prime example with myself, I was homeless when I had met you right there at the 174th and Monroe. That's where I was profiled for Vice. Vice was riding down the street. I had walking out there because it was a non-smoking facility, and I had to come outside and
to
smoke.
smoke.
And so when I approached the vehicle, he was like, "Okay, well, we'll give you $1,500 for you to be an informant, for you to tell us where drug dealers and sex workers are." And then I was like, so I denied it. So he was like, okay, well, I'm going to charge you with the lauding for the purpose of prostitution if you don't give me or my partner oral sex. That was the second option. So I did because I had no choice.
Police?
Yes, the vice police.
Yeah, I remember that. She was so hurt. And
Have you ever been arrested or charged?
Yes.
And so then did you have to go into the prison system?
Yes.
How long were you there
Well,
for?
I went through the booking system. So what I did was, and I fought it because I wasn't doing prostitution.
Yeah.
And so what I did was, they took me down. I got fingerprinted, and I had to go before the judge. But at this time, I didn't even know what I was getting what I was getting charged for, or whatever. Until I got to the court, and then when they said, "Oh, well, you was prostituting," and I'm like, "What?" And to this day, it's on my record, which prevents me from some type of housing and some type of employment because, like I said, it's being a youth.
How old were you?
I was actually 17. So my thing was I had to do whatever I had to do to survive because I couldn't go back home.
And now you can't get housing and now you can't get work.
And yeah, so
because
it's like
of the booking system.
Exactly. So that's why it's so important, for our youth, it leaves them vulnerable to the criminal justice system. So now they can't get work, they can't get employment, they can't do nothing because they have this prostitution on their record. So when they go in front of a landlord, the landlord look at that prostitution, so they're gonna think that you're a prostitute,
and you're going to prostitute from their home.
and you're gonna that's a big dilemma in our community that they don't house us because they feel like all transgender women sell sex.
Prostitution.
And so, which prevent us from housing, and then you have administrations that come into the policies and into politics that basically giving hood housing and permission and shelters permission to evict LGBTQ or trans people from their housing. So it's like giving them the okay. So it's like then once you evict us from your housing because of the system, because of the federal laws and the state laws, they throw us into the streets. So when they throw us into the streets, we are found wandering. So when we're found wandering, they get us for loitering, and when they get us for loitering, they get us for prostitution. Then once they prostitute us, they prosecute us, and once they prosecute us, they throw us in solitary confinement, which in a cell where we end up dead.
Like Layleen Polanco.
Say her name.
Layleen Polanco.
What's her name?
Layleen Polanco.
Okay, so let's just get to it. So you are talking about the walk.
Walking while trans ban, which is the loitering for the purpose of prostitution. That's the stop and frisk for
You want that gone?
Yes, we want that gone. We want that off the books because it gives the right to profile us for being prostitutes, which is a stepping stone to preventing us from housing, employment, and then once we
Only forcing you further into the sex industry,
Exactly.
or into drugs, or into
Exactly.
anything else.
Into worse
Exactly.
things.
Okay, so we have walking while trans ban, and then you also support Decrim, who
Yes.
are trying to decriminalize sex work. But then there are also powerful, predominantly white cis feminists who are speaking out against decriminalizing. And they want to decriminalize sex workers. They don't want sex workers to be punished, but they would still like to criminalize soliciting of sex. That's correct? Is this
Yes.
the Nordic model? Will
Like
you
the
explain
buyers.
what the Nordic model is?
Yes. Okay. So, with the Nordic model, the reason why the Nordic model is so violent to the sex workers is because, first off, it's still keeping the police involved in sex work.
You said it's violent, not valid.
It's violent.
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 And the most violent part about it is, in order to get the buyer, you have to profile and harass the seller.
Exactly.
So my thing is like officers will have to sit there and watch me and observe me as a seller to figure out who is the buyer. And then the crazy part about it is the way that they identify the buyer is the black and brown. When it's like, no, I get my coin from white
men.
Like I get coins, 300s, 400s. From the white man, 500s, 800s from the white man. So it's like y'all are criminalizing the black and brown. Y'all not criminalizing the buyers. So, and that's one.
You're
And then,
saying that so it's the black and brown people who solicit sex that they are punishing,
yes,
rather than the white men who solicit sex who they then protect and like maintain their privacy.
exactly.
What makes this so problematic is also the fact that then if we criminalize soliciting sex, it means that people have to be able to find sex workers in private, and that means on the internet,
On the
in the
internet.
back pages,
Yeah,
Back
you know.
pages
and it
of the
drives
Then
sex
that means
work.
that you can't screen your clients.
Exactly.
So now you have no way of meeting them in the daytime, because I know a lot of sex workers and I know they like to like maybe have a coffee
Right.
with a client beforehand just to vibe if that person is
Right.
a serial killer or
Right.
a violent
Of
person.
course.
So you can't screen your clients anymore because they have to do everything in the shadows, which
Right.
then puts you in situations
It's
in
a
which
and
you can be murdered.
You just took that right out of my mouth because I was just about to say that, and it's true. And it's like, I mean, when I was a sex worker, you know, to put it out there, I never walked the streets. I worked from my home, of course, and I tried to do it as safe as possible. You know, like you said, you know, I will screen you. You know, you don't have to walk the streets late at night and just meet some random guy because you need $50 and hey, you couldn't do it all day, leave. You know what I'm saying? So
And then just to put it out there, like the Nordic model, it basically gives landlords the right to discriminate.
and to profile.
And
So the Nordic model is trying to make it difficult for sex workers to get housing in order to be able to curtail the ways in which you could actually do
Exactly.
your job.
I don't know if that's what they're doing purposely, but you
That's
know
what
that
it's-
is the
No,
outcome.
because they're trying to prevent sex work from happening, so
Yeah.
they're just trying to close off areas in which that could happen and often sex
Exactly,
workers
and then
do
that's
their
just
work from
creating
home.
more
yeah,
trouble.
because Nordic model, when it went into effect,
Harassing.
law enforcement told the landlords that they was going to revoke their license if they don't evict the migrants and the sex workers out their housing because up under the Nordic model, landlords is a protection. It's considered a protection. So landlords can be charged with a felonies for protecting. That's just like right now. If the Nordic model was to go into effect, everybody in here right now is protecting us or whatever like that in the
Exactly.
state eyes, and everybody in here will be charged in the state eyes.
Another example would be, let's say, if you live with me, right? Let's say you live
You
in
go
my
to jail.
house,
You-
I would go to jail.
And you would lose
because
your
they're
house.
You lose your house
housing
and
you,
you felony.
They would presume
Yes.
you are performing sex work
Yes,
in
and you're
And then you're
protecting.
protecting
Yes,
us.
and you're going to felony.
I mean,
and
hey,
you're charged.
you'll
Absolutely.
be lucky if that's all you do is lose your apartment, because technically you'll be getting arrested for
Going into the
being
prison
a
Yeah, no,
pimp.
Yeah.
no. First off, if you are charged with prostitution on your record, you're not protected up under the rape shield law in the state of New
Yes.
York.
You can't go after the person who's raped you
No.
because you are not protected by the law.
Exactly, they make it hard for you.
And if you look at it, it's nothing but the white cis people that's basically pushing that model. And the way that they push the model is by their fame and by money. And they know that for our community, we don't have money. The only thing that we have is people power.
Exactly.
And so it's like that we try to utilize our people power, and then it's like, okay, well, y'all are black, y'all are marginalized, y'all are sex workers. Ain't nobody even going to give y'all an opportunity to be able to give up, to educate
Yeah,
us, to
platform
even,
to
you know,
educate.
that's why I appreciate you so
Yes,
much for
that's-
reaching out to
we
us
really
and
do.
giving us this platform to be able to reach out to the community and let the community know that, you know, we are transgender women. All of us are not sex workers. All of us, we come from different backgrounds, and we all are human. And my thing is, if just because we dress a certain type of way, or we first off, let me tell you the reason why I dress the way that I dress. Baby, the reason why I dress the way that I dress is because, honey, it took me forever
To
to
look
look like
this,
this.
okay?
Okay? And you think that, honey, and I didn't do nothing wrong. I didn't do nothing but embrace what God gave
You
me.
also look great.
I enhanced, honey, everything that he gave me, honey. I had some titties already, so I just enhanced it, made it bigger. I had hips and ass, so I just enhanced it and made it bigger. I didn't do nothing wrong, but embrace my body and live who I am.
So what I'm getting from what you're saying is not all, obviously, not all
Obviously.
trans people are sex workers. Not all black and brown trans people are sex workers. But on top of that, even if they are, they don't deserve to be denied the right
Definitely
to
not.
live safely and to be able to eat and pay bills.
Yeah, and
Definitely not. If
That's
everybody
not a
was
lot
on-
to
on
ask for.
board-
You're not hurting anyone. You are not causing the market. The market exists. It's the oldest trade in the world. The market will always exist. It'll never go away. There will never not be an appetite for sex on
Exactly.
demand.
I mean, if
And so
everyone
there's no
was
point just punishing you. And would you say specifically, would you say specifically that you find that it is, as with every fucking other part of the world, that it is black and brown people who are working within the sex industry, or who are black and brown and trans, who are discriminated against more than white people
Definitely.
of the same variation?
definitely
So the Nordic model has not yet been implemented.
no.
no.
How do people like me and people who are out here who are watching this interview, how do we support you?
Giving us this platform right here, giving us a platform to speak and educate, of course, streaming us, of course, you know, whatever, if you share it on your page. And
But how do
all
we
have
help
to
you
work.
politically, right? How do we, like, do you have petitions? Do you have ways that we can support you? This is
Yeah,
the
but-
best use of my platform, is to find out how I can make
Right.
sure lots of people who are with me
Right.
support your cause.
Well, right now, what we're in the process of doing, we don't have any petitions, but that's something that I can bring back to the table for us to start a petition and to sign a petition.
Yeah,
It'd
I
be
think
great
that's something
if y'all
that
could
we
like
should
at least like strong arm it, and then we can amplify it.
And what is the petition specifically for?
The decriminalization of sex work.
Decriminalization of-
And it's not just for the sex workers, it's also for those who solicit.
Yes, those who solicit and those who are loitering.
Okay, so finally I want to talk about the 3Ds.
Okay.
So decriminalize, decarcerate, destigmatize. These are the three things that you are looking to do with your
Destigmatize.
work, right? So you want to destigmatize it, and things like this, I guess, and all the
Right.
work that you're doing, going out and educating people about the fact that sex workers are nothing to fear. Decarcerate, you would like to...
To basically repeal the laws, which is basically take everybody that's been criminalized for the luring for the purpose of prostitution to be able to expunge their records so that they can be able to have employment,
that
to be
out.
able so that they can be able to get housing, and be able to live. So that's how we're going to decarcerate, by keeping individuals from going into the criminal justice system, into the jails, by being charged with prostitution.
And having that check
Completely
on your
fair.
record.
Yeah.
And decriminalization,
Which is simply removing the criminal laws wrapped around sex work.
I'm glad that you're using this for education purposes. I feel like that's where it all starts, with school and education and stuff like that. When I was in school, while everyone was learning their ABCs and who sailed across what ocean to claim what land, I was worried about who's going to find out I'm a transgender. I was worried about who's going to gay bash me, or if I was even going to make it home and whatnot. So destigmatizing everything, in general, we are human beings. You get what I mean?
But I just want you to know that I'm so appreciative of you both coming here, for both being so honest and open. It's incredibly brave to talk about these things and to talk about your life stories and what it is that you've done to survive. And I applaud your work. I totally see where you're coming from, and I will do everything I can to try to explain to other feminists amongst my circles why this is important and what is problematic with the Nordic model. Thank you for educating me, and for everyone who's watching this. T.S. Candii, Ms. Fermin, thank you so much.
Thank you.